Good evening. Welcome to this public hearing of the Majority Minority Redistricting Subcommittee. On behalf of the Albany County Redistricting Commission and the Majority Minority Redistricting Subcommittee, we thank you if you are joining us. Hereinafter, I will refer to the Majority Minority Redistricting Subcommittee as the MMD. My name is Marie Allen Campbell, and I am the current chair of the MMD Subcommittee. I'm gonna go over a few agenda items to let you know what we're planning to do tonight. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the call to order. I'm going to do a roll call. Then we're going to provide you with some information on the New York State redistricting law and the Albany County Local Law 8. Following that, I will be doing a redistricting overview. I will be followed by Pretty Mather and Sam Mather of Arkbridge, who will be providing information on the 2020 census as well as on the MMD mapping. That will be followed by a presentation from Kashana Owens-Cody on community engagement. And that will be followed by a public comment period. Thank you for joining us. At this time, the meeting is called to order. Roll call. Kashana Owens-Cody. Present. Donna Bullock. Present. Dominic Mazza. Present. Constance Graves. Present. Larry Malden. Present. Adrian Kissy. Present. And we are also joined via Zoom by Sam Pretty and Sam Mather and Pretty Mather from Arkbridge. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Donna Bullock, who will talk a little bit about New York State redistricting and Albany County law.
Closer if you can, yeah.
Thank you, Marie. Good evening, everyone. New York State redistricting is something that happens in every state every 10 years after the census. As you know, the census is where the population is counted, but that census population count helps cities and states in a number of ways. One of the ways it helps is it looks at whether a particular area has gained population or lost population. Those numbers will determine maybe how many individuals you may have in the House of Representatives. It may determine how much your state or your locality will receive in federal funding. So the census is important. And every year, every 10 years after the census, then states have to look at their
Constitution needs
district
to be amended
maps.
one more time before 2030 to
Okay. They have to look at their district maps for voting purposes. Now, there are state maps that are drawn, and New York State is in the process of drawing their state maps. State maps will determine, you have congressional maps that will determine the Senate, Representative, and the House of Representatives in Congress. And depending on the population, a particular state may gain additional members in the House, or they may lose members in the House. Each state only has 2 senators. That number never changes. Then we have we have our local maps within the state. And your state map will determine your New York State senators who are in the New York State legislature and the assembly members in the New York State legislature. And then we get to the local level, which would be the counties. And the counties have maps that will determine the county elections. So county legislators are elected by people within the county. And you also have county offices that are also elected by people in the county. County office would be like the county treasurer or the county comptroller or the district attorney. So the census determines redistricting every 10 years after the completion of the census. What we are doing as the MMD is we are working with respect to the Albany County maps that will determine the districts, which will then elect their representation. Minorities in Albany County make up 33% of the county's population. However, representation in the Albany County Legislature is currently less than 18%. Albany County residents challenged the last 3 redistricting efforts in the New York courts, and they won. This legal victory resulted in an increase in the number of minority districts within Albany County. Albany County then passed what is called Local Law 8 for 2019. The purpose of this law was to, 1, take party politics out of the redistricting process, 2, to ensure the input and needs of minority communities are considered in all aspects of the redistricting process. 3, to establish a process where Albany County residents have input. 4, to ensure fair representation. And 5, to protect the voting rights and interests of minority residents in and communities. This is what is being accomplished by the creation of the Albany County Redistricting Commission and the creation of the Minority Majority District Redistricting Subcommittee, or the MMD. The purpose of the subcommittee, as stated in the law, is to provide a laser focus to ensure the fair representation of Albany County minority communities in all aspects of the redistricting process. When you look at drawing district maps, and one of the purposes of the Local Law 8 is to try to take politics out of the drawing of maps. And if you've been following anything, in national news or state news, that that there are some states that are trying to draw maps that favor one political party against another. When drawing maps, there are some standards that should be used, and these standards are there to try and prevent what is called gerrymandering, which is when you try to draw maps that are in favor of one political party, or they're drawn in a way that may split a minority population so that the minority population really doesn't have an opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. So the MMD is here to ensure that fair representation is there for all Albany County minority communities. What our job is in this redistricting process is to make recommendations to the Albany County Redistricting Commission regarding the manner in which minority districts are drawn. Also, to ensure that minority residents residing in the majority districts have the opportunity to elect individuals who are representative of that district. And finally, to protect the voting rights of minority residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So just to talk a little bit more about redistricting.
Okay, sorry about that.
As Donna indicated, redistricting is a process that flows from the census and that happens every 10 years. Redistricting is essentially the drawing of boundaries for the districts. We're right now involved with the Albany County Legislature, which is comprised of 39 districts. As a result of changes that have happened in the population, those districts need to be redrawn. It's interesting of interesting note, in the 2020 census, almost all of the growth that has occurred in the population in Albany County has been of minority populations, Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians. Redistricting is undergirded by some federal laws, the 14th Amendment, the one person, one vote principle, which essentially says that there should be equal voting power amongst citizens, and my vote should count no more than anyone else's. It's the 15th Amendment that says that no one's vote shall be denied or abridged on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Those two amendments are enforced by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which prohibits discrimination in voting. So with that said, if you've been watching the news, listening to the radio, with all of those protections in place, you probably know that efforts to dilute the votes of minorities are pervasive across the country, happening in the state, and also happening in the county, as Donna alluded to. She talked about Albany County being sued and having to increase representation for minorities. So redistricting is essentially about ensuring fair representation for all Albany County minorities, and that's our goal, to ensure that all Albany County minorities have fair representation and can elect candidates of their choosing. With that said, we currently have 5 majority minority districts in Albany County. Increases in population in minority communities suggest that there are opportunities to increase those 5 majority minority districts. And that's part of our charge. To do redistricting work, it requires the voice of the public. And when the Albany County Legislature decided to go the route of independent commissions, which is still a relatively new phenomenon, it was based on the notion that we needed to have a fair and equitable process in determining where the lines are drawn to ensure that everybody's voting power is protected. In order to do this work successfully, we need to hear from the public. We need to know about your communities. We need to know the things that connect neighborhoods. You may hear a lot of talk about communities of interest. Communities of interest become one of the principles that we look at with redistricting, and essentially that is, what are the common social issues, the common social challenges, the culture, the history that connect communities? What are those common interests that connect communities? So in terms of our process, we were created as a body to do this work, and since that time, we have been doing a lot of things to progress this work. As of the last month and a half or so, we've been involved in mapping, and we put out an initial preliminary map, which I'm not really going to go into because ArcBridge will be discussing that with you more fully once I'm done. But in order for us to appropriately draw maps and to appropriately create boundaries, the most critical thing that's part of the redistricting process is input from the public. And with that said, Sam Mather, Pretty Mather, they're going to come and they're going to talk to you more about the 2020 census and the mapping.
Good evening. I am Preeti Mathur from ArcBridge, and I have Sam here with me as well. I would like to share my screen now to show you a PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared for tonight. ArcBridge is a company that does demographic consulting, redistricting, and we are working with MMD. So to begin with, I want to give you a quick overview of the total population and the racial and ethnic distribution of the population in Albany County. On the left-hand side, you can see a graph which shows you the non-Hispanic white percentage, the Hispanic percentage, the non-Hispanic Black percentage, and non-Hispanic Asian, and all the other categories that you can see here. We are also showing you here the state adjusted census public law 94-171 data set, which the state adjusted based on incarcerated population. So with this slide, all I would like to tell you is that given the total population of Albany County, which is 316,079, the ideal population, which is the total population divided by the number of districts, is 8,105. So moving on to the next slide, what we looked at was the entire county, and we said, let us see which districts have less population and which have more. Now, for redistricting requirements for the state of New York, they have this requirement that the maximum deviation should be under 5%. Now, what is maximum deviation? Maximum deviation is the difference between the least populated and the most populated district. So the districts that you're seeing in red and pink, they are the ones that have more population as compared to the ideal population, and the ones in green have less. So because we are the MMD, we wanted to focus on the MMD districts. So on the next slide, we show you the District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 are the MMD districts. And you can see here that the total for each district, voting age population, I already spoke to you about the ideal population, the deviation, and the deviation percent. So Albany County requirements are that the deviation for each district should not be more than 2.5%. And you can see right off the bat that these districts need to be worked on so that we can bring them up. The deviation should not be more than 2.5%. So the next step that we did was we looked at population distribution by race and ethnicity using the 2021 state adjusted data set. So what you're seeing on this map is by the colors that we are using here, we have red is Hispanic majority, yellow is non-Hispanic white majority, blue is non-Hispanic Black majority. This map is already on the Albany County Redistricting website, so you can take a look at it. But what I'm going to do on the next slide is zoom into our MMD districts and see where the minority populations are. And as I said before, wherever you see the blocks, and these are census blocks that we are using, wherever you see them color-coded in blue, they are majority non-Hispanic Black. And where you see them in red, they are majority Hispanic. And where you see them in yellow is non-Hispanic white. So looking at this data, we determined how can we adjust our districts so that we can preserve the majority minority districts that the county currently has, and also explore the possibility of more MMDs. So on the next slide, I'm just showing you these districts which are majority or plurality of non-Hispanic Black population. So districts 1, 6, 2, 3, and 4 are majority plurality non-Hispanic Black districts. And if you see on the right-hand side of the screen, there are those districts, and we find another district, which is District 7, which is a combination of minority population. So with this current analysis, what we did was we looked at the numbers and we looked at the percentages for the majority minority districts. And here you can see Hispanic population, total population, and percent. And then you can also see the voting age population, which we have put in as VAP, and then non-Hispanic white, total VAP for non-Hispanic Black. And then we also have a category, which is minority as a whole, which is anybody who's not non-Hispanic white. We put it in this category. So these are the districts, and we call them the as-is analysis. And we are showing you the deviations, and we are showing you what we have to do in order to adjust these districts and make them compatible with the redistricting requirements. So I move on now to the next slide. And in the next slide, what we are showing you is we are comparing the 2011 district by district data with the 2021 data, both total population and voting age population. And here we are looking at the difference. So what you're seeing in the first column is the difference in the non-Hispanic white category, non-Hispanic Black, Hispanic, and non-Hispanic Asian category. So you can see that where there has been negative growth and whichever category is seeing a positive growth. So you can see, and here we have just picked the MMD districts so that we can highlight those. So here you're seeing voting age population percentage, and you can see that how the non-Hispanic white population, non-Hispanic Black population, Hispanic, and Asian. So this is the district by district analysis. And then I also put down here that in 2011, the Hispanic population was 4.9%. Non-Hispanic white population was almost 76%, and non-Hispanic Black population was almost 12%. In 2021, you're seeing a gain in Hispanic population. Non-Hispanic white population, you're seeing a drop there, and a very small gain in the non-Hispanic Black population. With this, I want to show you the data on a map. So here what you're seeing is that these are our MMDs, right? And what you're seeing, the color red is, and this is for non-Hispanic Black population, and I'm showing you the difference on a map so that you could visualize what is happening. So where you're seeing red, the difference between the 2 decades is that it is going down. So there is a negative growth in these districts in non-Hispanic Black population. And what you're seeing in orange, that there is a difference, but the difference is less. So here, the red and the orange colors, those districts are seeing a negative growth in non-Hispanic Black population. And where you're seeing green, light shades of light to dark shades of green, there is a positive growth of non-Hispanic Black population. So from here, you can see that over the 10-year period, it appears that non-Hispanic Black population is moving out from our MMDs, and it's moving up north here, and especially here. And I'm going to show you the zoomed in version so you can visualize. So I have labeled the district number and the percent change in each district. So now to show you a zoomed in version of our MMDs, you're seeing that there is a negative growth of 6.89% in District 1, in District 6, in District 2, in District 3, District 4, and here we have District 5, and then District 7 is seeing a positive growth. So it seems like that the non-Hispanic Black population is moving out from these districts to the neighboring surrounding districts. And it seems like District 7 is gaining about 11, or you can, if we round it up, it's about 12% gain in non-Hispanic Black population. So with this information, what we did was we drafted the MMD, we call it the MMD Draft Plan A. And we call it revised because if you've been following, we had a Plan A, and then we got public comment and we responded to that. And so here I present to you the Draft Plan A revised. And here, if you look at the numbers, this is the total population, voting age population, ideal population, which I told you was 8,105. And look at the deviations, how we have been able to manage them so that now our districts are going to be compatible. If you look at the chart here, we have given you more detailed information by race and ethnicity, and we have focused on Hispanic, non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic Black population, and we have put in a category for all minorities. So that is an overview, and now I want to take you into a comparison. So this is on the left-hand side is the as-is map. On the right-hand side is our draft plan A. And if what you're seeing here on this map is the white and black line that you're seeing, those are your current districts. And the black line is what we are proposing in this draft plan A. So you can already see differences here, some over here, here. And so our goal has been to maintain these minority districts and keep the districts as much as possible the way they are currently, and yet be able to make them compliant with the redistricting requirements. So having shown you a comparative analysis, I want to go in and dig deeper and talk also about neighborhood associations and municipalities. So these MMDs are completely contained within the city of Albany. And these are the neighborhood associations, and we have labeled them on this map. So now let's look at District 1. District 1, what we did was, this is what we needed. District 1 was 97 people short, and this was the deviation. So we picked in a block, and here what was happening with picking this block, it made the boundary more even. And we picked this particular block, which you see highlighted in blue. It has a population of 182 people. And if you can see that this is the population here, population details, we were able to pick about 59 non-Hispanic Black population out of this total, and we are able to keep this as an MMD. So this was change number 1 for District 1. Now we look at District 2 and 3 changes. For District 3, if you go back and look at the slide, we needed about 290 people for District 3, and District 2 needed 532 people. So with this, I'll show you that we picked a block here, and this block is currently in District 2. We picked it and we assigned it to District 3. Now, this particular block gave us a population of 242 with a large quantity of non-Hispanic Black population. So that was the only change that we did to District 3, and that got us into our deviation requirements. Now, District 2, as you saw, was already short of people. So we went down to District 4, and we picked these blocks from District 4, and you can see that we picked about 372. But that wasn't much of a gain because we had taken this from District 2. So we gained 372 from here. And then we also picked this area, and we picked 470 people. And you can see the racial and ethnic details in these boxes. So minor changes, but yet this was able to, with these changes, we were able to keep up with the deviation requirements. So now we move on to District 4 and 6. Now, District 4, because District 4 helped on District 2, we were able to go in here, and I believe this is District 13. So we picked these blocks and we picked this, and the total here that we were able to gain with this change was 894. And you can see that we picked a large amount of non-Hispanic Black population, which is currently in District 13. So we were able to bring in and get the deviation to where we wanted them. And in District 6, we made a minor change. And you can see that this particular block gave us an additional 111 people. And if you look at that, we did not gain a lot of non-Hispanic Black population, but we were able to bring up our numbers and yet keep it as a majority minority district. So these were the districts, the 5 districts that we had, where it was a non-Hispanic Black majority plurality district. Now I'll talk about District 7. And in District 7, we picked up these blocks, and part of it was to even out the District 7, and we needed population. So we got 618 people, and with this, we were able to keep it up to the deviation that we needed. So with this is the draft plan A that MMD has put out, and it is on the website for you to review in more detail. And with that, I conclude my presentation. So if you have any questions, I'm here for that. And with this, I pass it back to Marie.
Thank you, Pretty. That was really good information, and really good explanation of what's going on with the data that we could really follow. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kashana Owens Cody, who's going to talk about community engagement.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kishana Owens Cody, and just want to thank again Sam and Pretty for that presentation as well. And we recognize that it's a lot of information to digest. Like all of us that are sitting on this committee also can attest that when we see the maps, sometimes we have to take some time and look at the maps ourselves outside of these meetings. So we encourage you to go on the MMD or actually on the Albany County Redistricting website that can be found on Albany County, NewYork.gov. And we have a redistricting page. I apologize, my screen is not sharing. But we hope to hear from you all. As Marie echoed, that it's important that we get your feedback. We want to make sure that your voice is heard. As you also heard from Pretty, she shared that we've updated the maps in real time because we did get feedback from meetings in this room, plus in the community. But this is your community and you have a voice, and we want everyone to exercise their civic engagement. And again, we value your voice. We recognize sometimes it's hard to get to meetings like what we're holding right now, which is why it's on YouTube. We hope that people go on our YouTube page as well, but we're also going to be active in the community. We've already gone to, if anybody went to the egg hunt last weekend, we were there with our maps and we were able to talk to lots of people in the community, but also on our webpage on the redistricting page, you'll find all different events that we will be out and bringing our maps on the road so that we can educate more people on this process, but also get your feedback on how these lines are being drawn. So our website again is albanycounty.com/ACRC. And we hope to see you at events, but we also hope to see some emails from all of you expressing your comments, feedback, strengths, weaknesses, as we've drawn these lines. And I'll turn it back to Marie.
Thank you, Kashana. We have someone who's going to give public testimony. He'll follow me. I just wanted to say that we have begun to get public input. We've had people that have submitted written testimony, as well as people that have submitted their own maps to us. Those maps are currently under consideration. As we get feedback from the public, we are taking that information in, analyzing some of the maps currently. But we are the faces behind redistricting, but we are not the energy that drives it. The energy that drives it is the public. And with that, we're going to bring on Lars Dahl.
Thank you for having me here today. Can you all hear me in the room?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for having me. My name is Lars and I'm a resident of Albany, the city of Albany. And I've been testifying at a couple hearings. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about your revised maps as a subcommittee. And I also wanted to talk about a couple maps I submitted earlier today. So, first thing I wanted to talk about was the revised maps. And I do applaud the commission for a lot of the changes that were made. I think getting District 3 out of Manans was definitely a smart decision. Definitely is what the community wanted. So thank you for doing that. I also wanted to thank the mapping team for adding the neighborhood association overlay. I think that that's a really good to see where the neighborhoods are to better understand the maps. But seeing that overlay that was presented earlier really brings home my argument that I've made previously to the commission that the existing maps do a lot of splitting of neighborhoods that are unnecessary. For instance, the Washington Square neighborhood, the Warehouse District, Beverwick, South Ends, City Square neighborhoods, all of those neighborhoods are split under the existing lines, and new lines should be drawn that reflect the neighborhoods and communities that live there. Delaware Avenue is still split into 3 districts on your map. And it is one unified community. I think it should be a priority of the communities, of the commission rather, moving forward to focus in on them. Instead of just commenting in abstract about these neighborhoods and community, I figured that I should talk a little bit today about where I live and give you an example of why the current maps don't serve the community well. I personally live at the base of Sheridan Ave, right on the border between District 2 and 6. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those districts. District 2 is primarily made up of Sheridan Hollow and the Arbor Hill neighborhoods. Both of those neighborhoods are predominantly African American and have a long history of being impoverished. When you think about the textbook definition of redlining, those are the neighborhoods that were hit the hardest by it. Systematic disinvestment of those communities, a lack of opportunity. It's been a really tough place and it continues to struggle. But while there is still remnants of that today, the community is trying to rebound. Groups like Habitat for Humanity and others working on Orange Street, like Community Realty and the Affordable Housing Partnership, are slowly growing the neighborhood back, and it's becoming a better place for it. But at the same time, that's 75% of the district. What else is in this district besides Sheridan Hollow and Arbor Hill? And what is the answer to that question, that remaining 25%? is a random places that don't really belong in that community. There's a massive hill that's on the other side of the road from me. There's a reason why it's called Sheridan Hollow, and it's because of that huge hill. You cannot travel for half of the district from Elk Street to Sheridan Ave because that hill is unpassable. It's huge, and it's a huge physical and almost neighborhood change. You go on the other side of the hill, that's Washington Ave. That's a whole bunch of offices that are tailored to focus on the state capitol. For instance, anyone who is familiar with the NYSUT building, that's there. The Firefighters Union, SCIU is based there. The New York Conference of Mayors is based there. And all of those organizations that focus on political advocacy at our state capitol, being in the same district as a very residential neighborhood that has been redlined historically, it just doesn't match at all. Elk Street is clearly where Sheridan Hollow starts and ends, and that border should be respected. At the same time, it also goes a little bit further up north into the Center Square and Washington Ave neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods are much more commercial. There's a huge avenue beyond the state lobbying organizations that continues up a ways on Western and Washington Ave. Those areas are primarily commercial. The people living there are much whiter, much more educated. They have higher incomes. And so those areas are just fundamentally different from the Sheridan Hollow community. If those areas, while I understand that Arbor Hill and Sheridan Hollow aren't enough to constitute their own district by themselves, if they're going to take people from that area, they should take an entire community, take all of Center Square and add it. But instead of taking just little pieces of other neighborhoods and adding them in, it just creates a very weird mix that doesn't serve the area well. An example of how this plays out actually in terms of issues is one of the biggest issues over there in the Center Square neighborhood is parking. It's the one place in the city, at least to the best of my knowledge, where you actually have to be a resident of that neighborhood to get street parking. It's a huge problem for people there. But at the same time, in Sheridan Hollow and Arbor Hill, if you're going down Sheridan Ave, there's much more parking. You're almost guaranteed to find a spot. So just the issues that are facing these areas are fundamentally different. Outside of District 2 is District 6, which is an unusual district in the sense that it comprises, by population, 80% of the district is in the south end of the street. In South Pearl, South End, the Mansion District, a little bit of Capitol Hill. But then the district stretches north into downtown and grabs a random bit of the warehouse district. That warehouse district portion, you may have noticed on the map, is a single census block with around 460 people in it. That is a senior living facility where a lot of elderly African-American people live. What is odd about that district is of all of the people who go to downtown, which is in the district, the seniors are the least likely people to actually be going downtown, yet those are the ones in the same district as downtown. It just doesn't quite make sense why that exists, and it makes the district form an odd backwards L shape, which is highly unusual. The other thing going on up there is the fact that there's a lot of new developments that are happening up there that are different from what's happening in the southern part of the district. For instance, one of the biggest problems facing that area is the rise in high-rise apartments that are designed for higher income people who work for the state. There's new buildings popping up all over the Leo O'Brien building, the Nick, the Kenmore, the Kennedy. All of these are slowly gentrifying the neighborhood up there, and people are concerned. Another big thing that everyone's really interested in the northern part of that district is the Albany Skyway, which finally connects the northern half of the city of Albany with the riverfront. It's incredibly popular, opened last Friday, and everyone is going there and talking about it. But for most of the people in District 6, they haven't heard about the Albany Skyway. It is miles, it's like a mile north of them, and there's already a different place that they can go to cross on Jennings Bridge. So they would never need to go up to the Skyway and see it. They don't worry about gentrification in the high-rise apartment complex buildings because South Pearl Street has been historically underinvested. It's North Pearl that gets all the money. There's been a series of Times Union articles. Yesterday, there's a really good Times Union article about it that was on the front page that talked about how North Pearl is just a fundamentally different place than South Pearl. And the border is the South Mall Artillery. That's part of 787. Those communities are so different. One with money, one without, one predominantly white, one predominantly not white. And so there's really no justification for that district the way it is. And that's an example of why the current districts are really failing and new districts should be drawn. Another concern I have with the existing revised maps proposed by the commission is that I'm worried that the 7th district will not consistently serve as an MMD and elect a person of color to that district. That district is nominally a MMD district by 0.04% or something like that. So it is technically a minority district, but as we've heard, there's a huge Asian population in that district, and Asians don't necessarily vote the same way that Hispanic and Black people do. At the same time, there's a huge portion of people in that district that are immigrants. It's one of the biggest immigrant communities in the city of Albany is based in District 7. And while your analysis using the two softwares show that the voting age population is majority non-white, it doesn't account for the citizen voting age populations. Software that does account for that shows that the district is over 60% white by citizen voting age population, which is a big concern for a district. And while that district has elected a person of color in the past, having elected a person of color isn't necessarily the only term that defines what MMD is. For instance, New York 19 and New York 17 both have African-American males serving in Congress from majority white districts, and that doesn't make their districts MMDs. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I would like to see District 7 boosted in the Black and Hispanic population. Moving on to the maps I submitted earlier today, I'm sure that no one has looked at them yet, but there are 3 of them. First one focuses mainly on keeping communities of interest together. This map takes the overlays that they kindly provided for everyone's website, for the commission's map, and actually adapts that to take neighborhoods together. And to me, neighborhoods are the most important communities of interest, and this map reflects this and has Delaware Avenue for the most part entirely in the neighborhood, keeps Sheridan Hollow and Arbor Hill with all of Center Square. So it's not just bits and pieces of scrambled up districts. This map is really helpful, and all of the MMDs are above 55% non-white by voting age population. So it is even stronger under VRA analysis than the proposed map by the commission that's been recently revised. The second map takes that a step farther, and while it does sacrifice a little bit in terms of keeping communities of interest together, it focuses on really ensuring that strong MMD districts are drawn. And while this may come at a cost to some communities of interest, it is potentially more important for the commission to make sure that all of the MMDs continue to be performing. And so this map accounts for that. This map also accounts for the fact that there's a large immigrant population that is considered voting age, but not actually able to vote. And all of the districts in there are substantially more non-white to help account for that. And the last of the maps, of the 3 maps, focuses in on the creation of the idea of creating 7 MMD maps. This map is very different from the map submitted by Gordon. Unlike that map, this map sticks entirely inside of the city of Albany, with all of the 7 MMD districts. And this map also has a compactness score that is 0.44, so only slightly less than what the commission came up with as a whole. This creates 2 new MMD districts, and I really think it should be considered having that drawn. All of the districts there are majority or plurality Black. And having half of the districts in Albany, city that's 50% non-white, having the half of those districts be non-white, I think would be adequate representation. So again, thank you so much for listening to my testimony today. I apologize if it's on the lengthier side, and I'm happy to answer any questions as always.
Thank you, Lars. We appreciate your participation. I have a question for you. What do you think is key to really engaging the public?
I think the key to engaging the public is to meeting the public where they are. When the commission and the MMD started, there was almost an assumption that if we post stuff on our website, people will come and look and flock to it. And as we've seen, that has not panned out. Since then, the MMD has adopted. The MMD is now going to community events, being where the community is. And that is huge. And I suspect that is how you are going to get most of your public input. And so I really think that that's the best way to do it. I know you guys aren't the Greater Redistricting Commission, but I am a little bit concerned that the Greater Commission is not going into the community the way you guys are. So thank you. And I think that you guys are really doing a good job with community engagement. I know it's hard.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. We appreciate that. And we also appreciate all your feedback and testimony. It's making us better.
And you guys are doing a great job. And I appreciate the work that all of you are doing.
Thank you.
Lars, I have a question for you. Just want to make sure that I understood correctly what you were saying about. Sorry, I needed the mic. Okay, just a question. I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying about map number 2 that you proposed. You said that there was a large immigrant population in that map, but we're not of voting age. Is that what you said?
Not quite. So
Okay.
in the area of District 7, where District 7 is in the Washington Square area, just north of the downtown SUNY Albany campus, that's where there's a large immigrant population that is not that is of the voting age, but are not citizens.
They're of voting age, but not citizens.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that's going to be present across any map that you draw.
Well, I have one question. Lars, do all of your maps meet the 2.5% tolerance?
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
One more, and do they meet the population, 8,000 105?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have anything else for Lars?
I got a question. Marie, I got a question for Lars.
Okay.
The question that I have for you, Lars, we looked at one of your submissions and we analyzed it, and it had the same number of MMDs as we currently have, 5 districts. So you're talking about 3 new submissions. How different should we expect them to be? Because I have not looked at them, but I would be very interested in looking at them.
Well, they are pretty substantially different. The one I submitted is most similar to my map 2. I do not believe you're correct in your assertion that there are only 5 MMDs on the first map. If that map, District 7 on that map has a higher minority population than the District 7 that is on the revised MMD committee map. So either neither of those are MMDs or both of them are MMDs. So I think you'll find that that does have 6. It may not have a plurality Black population because that area has a large non-Black minority population, but that does have more minorities living in District 7 than on the Commission's District 7.
Okay. And they are currently available on the ACRC website.
In the more software, I hit share with administrators. I'm not sure where it goes from there. On the Maptitude software, you'd have to ask or bridge that.
Yeah, so if you submitted them today, we haven't seen them yet. And basically what happens with the submissions and MORES, they provide them in a PDF format. And so we should see them probably tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have anything else. There's no other speakers. And so at this time, we will adjourn. Thank you.